Okay, so we now go into set up our payroll. And again, in the real world, this is something that you would do kind of, when you initially buy Sage, and after that, then it should stay consistent. But where you're putting in your company details, you're going to put in kind of the types of payments that you're going to make to your employees and how they should be treated for tax, PAYE, PRSI purposes. You're also going to set up any deductions that you're going to allow your employees to have, taken out of their wages, and how, again, they should be treated. You're then going to set up your calendar, so your payroll calendar, and that is whether you pay your employees on a Thursday or on a Friday, whether it's paid weekly or fortnightly, and then you'll set up your employees and make whatever changes to your employees. So it's kind of, you can see that it's set up here kind of, in a kind of a flow chart pattern, that you set your period, you then edit your employees. In a real world situation, you would have a link to the revenue online website, and you would the Ross site, and from there you would be able to get the revenue payroll notices each time you're running a payroll, and that would tell you, the people, your staff's cut-off points, tax credits, if any changes, if they're on a week one, a cumulative basis, and you would check that every single time. Because we're not a real live company, we don't have that link to revenue, so we'll be skipping that step, but that is a step that you would complete in the real world. Then once we've edited our employees and actually have employees set up, we'll be able to enter their time and pay. So what are we actually paying them this week? Are they on a salary? Are they taking leave? Are they getting any commission, any bonuses? How many hours did they work if they're hourly paid? We will then check all of the details to come out of it. So kind of view the control summary. Does it look reasonable? Does it look kind of consistent with the type of gross pay to net pay that we should be paying? And again, checking our gross to nets. So for the purposes of our work over the next couple of weeks, we're going to, compare it back to the real life results that I would have generated. So if we would be kind of saying, we're just after buying Sage, we're checking it out, we're making sure that it works before we give the go ahead to say, yes, this is okay. And that's what you would do in a real life situation. You would parallel run and make sure that the results you're getting from your system are consistent with what you've been getting from your previous system. And only when you're confident that those results match should you end your period. Okay, so you can go back if your gross net doesn't look right. You can go back and edit your time and pay. You can go back and edit your employees. So maybe you left somebody on emergency pay. Maybe you haven't taken them off of week one. Maybe their tax credits and cutoff point haven't updated. Maybe their new deduction hasn't kicked in. So you can go back and edit the employees. You can then go and regenerate a timesheet for them, and again check your reports. So it's kind of a flow chart here. So don't get into the habit of editing your employees and just entering the time and pay and ending the period. Always check the results. Do they appear consistent? Is there a reason why somebody's not getting a net pay? Is there a reason why somebody's getting a huge tax refund? So kind of interrogate the figures and try and make sure that they make sense, and only then would you end the period. In the real world, you would send a payroll submission to revenue. So that's done every week or every fortnight. You would view and print the payslips. And that may be a situation that you have an online payslip portal that you can release the payslips to that site for your staff to log in and access them using a password. Or it may be that you physically print them out and stick them in envelopes and give them to your employees. In the real world, you would do a bank transfer. So that is where you would go in and send the file to the bank, or log in and distribute the money out to the various employees. You would check your reports. So you might run a report to look and see, well, how much do I currently owe revenue? How much do I currently owe the likes of the credit union, the VHI, whatever it is that you've been collecting money on behalf of. Your processing nominal is where you're generating a general journal to import into your bookkeeping system, or your financial management system. So it's kind of showing the gross to net, so your overall gross pay figure, and then kind of what the distribution is, and the double entry of that. And then process pension if you have pension payments that you're making out to people. Backup would be something that you would do on a regular basis. So you would maybe have your backup running every 10 to 15 minutes, so that you're not going to lose much data in the event that something crashes. You could be backing up to the cloud, you could be backing up to USB keys, whatever it is, but you definitely need to make sure that you have a backup. So just for our purposes, we're, I suppose, going to be looking at, these certain ones of these, but just note that in the real world situation, you would be engaging with revenue, you would be engaging with the banks. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our company details are right. So we're going up to company and payroll, and we're putting in our company details. And in there, we're just going to, if we have an address for the company, we can pop it in. Hopefully this will start responding soon. So we'll just say that they're in Main Street, Tullamore, County Offaly. Payroll frequency is weekly. Now the employer reg number, I'm going to make one up and see will it accept it. This is effectively just the PPS number of the employer company. Now it's not valid, so that's fine. We can leave it empty, but it'll just keep giving me an error message or a warning message to tell me that there is no registration number. Not the end of the world, but just to note. The bank, we can make up a bank account number. Okay. And okay, so that's just some company details gone in. The main important thing here is setting up our payments and our deductions and how they should be treated. So we are just going to edit some payments here, and you see when you go into it, excuse me. So that was under company payroll and payments, and you see that there's 4 set up at the moment. And if we look at a basic pay, we're just going to go in here to edit, and we can see that title basic, we're not going to touch the type. We're saying that yes, basic pay should have tax deducted. It should have PRSI deducted. Now the PRSI is a little bit strange in that it is it's not a tick box. The options are apply both employee and employer, apply employee only, apply employer only, or do not apply PRSI. For the likes of basic pay, it's going to be apply employee and employer. USC will be deducted. I'm going to tick to include it in the pension calculation, and I'm going to tick here to include it in the holidays. Now, this will be the same for every question that we do, but it'll be the start of every question. I will have a sheet telling me this. So I'm just going to save. The time and a half, I'm just going to edit it again. And time and a half is time and a half. Number of hours based on the hourly rate is fine. Yes, it should have tax. Yes, it should have PRSI. Yes, it should have USC. I want to include it in the pension. I don't want to include time and a half in the holiday period, so I'm just going to save. The double pay, again, I'm just going to edit. Double is fine. Number of hours based on the hourly rate, it's fine. It's taxed. It's PRSI'd. It's USC'd. I am going to include it in the pension. I'm not going to include it in the holidays. Okay, and save. And the salary, I'm just going to edit. And the salary is a fixed amount each pay period. So I'm not touching the type at all. Whatever has defaulted in as the type, I'm leaving it be. I'm deducting tax. I'm deducting PRSI. I'm deducting USC. I'm including it in the pension, and you can see that it is already included in the holidays. So I'm going to save. Okay, so I'm always going to edit these 4. I will always give you details on the edits to make to them. Whether something is included or not included in holiday pay will maybe set out in the employee's contract, but it's just this is the way I just want to do it, just to get you used to going in and editing these, and to know how to do it, and then just to make sure that we're consistent across the board. Okay, so I'm going to create 3 new ones. So the first one I'm going to create is commission. So I'm just going to give it a title. Oops. And commission is going to be, it's not going to be a fixed amount each pay period. It's going to be a variable amount each pay period. So you can see that there's different options in there. So variable amount means they may get commission this week, they may not get it next week. It might be 100 this week, it might be 500 the following week. So it depends. Commission will be taxable. It will be PRSIable. It will have USC charged on it. I'm not going to include it in the pension, and I'm not going to multiply it by the number of holiday periods. Okay. Now you'll see when we go up to new, it'll take the setting of the one that we copy. So if I go to new, it'll take, oh, it hasn't actually, it's taken the salary one as the default. So bonus, again, bonus is going to be a variable amount each pay period. I'm going to tax it. I'm going to PRSI it. I'm going to USC it. I'm not going to include it in the pension. I'm not going to include it in the holidays. That's safe. And the expenses then, now this is where most people go wrong. It's a variable amount each pay period. Expenses, no tax, no USC, do not apply PRSI. So this is where a lot of people go wrong. They actually forget, they don't take the tax and the USC, but they forget here to go in and say, do not apply PRSI. I'm not going to include it in the holidays. Okay, so the expenses, it would be great if we could all get our wages paid as expenses, but unfortunately we can't. Okay, so you should have 7 at the end of that, and I'm just going to close. Okay, so that's the payments. And just one thing to look out for, see there, the basic pay is coming in at a factor of 1, time and a half is coming in at a factor of 1.5, and the double is coming in at 2. You don't need, these will default in, you don't need to touch them. Okay, so the only thing that you're actually interested in is whether it's taxable or PRSIable or whatever. Okay, and close. So the next thing then we want to do is create the deductions. We're going up to, again, up to company and payroll and deductions. And it defaults in with 2 of them, LPT and pension. We are not going to touch those. We are going to use them, but we're not going to touch them. And we are going to go with new. Now I'll check the 2 of those just to show you the settings in a second. So I'm just going to set one up called savings. It's going to be a net deduction, and that means it's taken off after your tax, PRSI and USC or whatever. So there's no impact on your tax. And the subtype for these is just going to be standard. Then the holidays, multiplied by the number of holiday periods. So if somebody's on 2 weeks holidays, we want it to take 2 weeks savings. And that's fine, that's grand. And then balance type, accumulated balance, and that's where on their pay slip that it shows the amount this week and it shows the amount for the year to date, and that's fine. It's just a handy little information thing for somebody. And save. Okay, and the next one then we're going to do is social, and again it's going to be net and it's going to be standard. And save. And new, I'll just go med insurance. Again, it's net and standard. Now you can just type N and S in there and it works fine as well. And the last one then is union, N and S, so net and standard and save. Okay, so that is our main bones set up, and the next thing we're going to do is set the payroll calendar. So we're going down to set period, and it says revenue, use your payroll calendar dates to validate your returns. That's fine. I'm just going to say create a calendar. Now, hopefully from a license point of view, we have all of the months in, so just make sure. So the first Friday in January was the 3rd of January, so I'm going to just use that as my, so the 3rd of the 1st, 2025. And just to be easy about it, I'm just going to keep my pay date and my bank date the same. So we'll see if it'll update. Okay. If not, we'll just go with the, we'll just go with 2024 and see if that works. Yeah. So it's just bringing it in that the pay date is the 3rd of January 2024 and all the way along. That's fine. Okay. Now where you see in there cost month, you see it's just shown April, it's linking all of those together. It's linking all of these together as May. I think, so it's more for your file that's going out to your financial management system. That's all. So we're just going to save. Okay. Our new period process is period 1. The pay date is the 3rd of January 2024. 3rd of January 2024. That's fine. We're just going to OK it. It then does its thing. And we should now see, okay, it has found one issue, and the issue that it'll have found here is the lack of an employer reg number, and that's fine. That's okay. So we can live with that and close. If it has any serious errors, it won't let you go ahead. But the interesting thing here is we see that our frequency is weekly. Our payroll period now is 1. It has a pay date of the 3rd of the 1st, 2024, and it is telling us that our status is that we are at the start of a period. Okay, so just keep an eye as we move through the question, what happens to that status. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up one employee, just because otherwise this video will be a month long. So to do that, I just go into edit employees, and because I don't currently have any employees, it brings me into this new employee screen. There are certain things that are mandatory that you have to have. So you see here, like there will be an asterisk beside them. So the first fella I'm going to set up is Ryan Giggs. He has an address of Millionaire Row in Wales Way, County Offaly. We have a PPS for him, and his date of birth is the 3rd of April 1987. Now, a new thing is their gender, and this is to do with the gender pay report that is required to be published by companies, and the options are male, female, prefer not to say. That list will probably grow over the next while, but it's just to allow companies to report on the gender pay gap if it exists. Okay, so the tax USC status for new employees are set to emergency, and that's fine. We'll be able to change that in a second. The PRSI code is going to be A1 for all of ours, and that will mean that they're effectively, they are in that group of PRSI code A. They can move between it. So some weeks they might be AO, they might be AX, whatever. So it'll depend on what their earnings are in the particular week. But we're just saying that their status is that they are a Class A employee. Their pay type is he's a salary, and his pay method is, I'm just going to go with him as a check. Okay, that's fine. So it's not a valid PPS number, and that's grand. We can leave it out. So it's pain that you have to use real PPS numbers. It's great in the real world, but it's not so great in an education setting. So when we say next there, it brings us into this screen. So it's kind of saying they are the main important things that they need to get you started. So you can see Ryan Giggs, you can see his address. If we wanted to put in any more information, I would say, like, I've popped County Offaly in there. Try and have a good data entry convention, I suppose, in your organization, because if you wanted to run a report to show all employees who live in Offaly, by putting it in there where I have it, it's probably going to be a little bit more awkward. If you use this field here, you're going to be maybe able to run a report to extract the data. It also kind of, like, some people might use county full stop space Offaly, some people might not leave the space. So it's good to just have a data entry convention. So we've popped in that he's male, and that's fine. We can go up here to the tax PRSI, and we are told that his tax status is normal. So normal means cumulative in this situation. His standard rate cutoff point is 36,500, and his tax credits are 3,800. we are told he is PRSI class A1, and that's fine. Now, the one thing that I don't like is the way the USC behaves. Okay, so if we look here, it defaults in that all pay is at 8%. So the fact that we've tagged him as normal here hasn't made any difference to the pay. If we left him on emergency, you see here the override USC details is grayed out. We're not able to make any changes. But by changing them to normal, this little button becomes available to us, but you have to override the USC details. If somebody is on a normal or a week one pattern, you have to override it. Otherwise, it'll deduct all USC at 8%. So we just go in here to override USC details, and we're going to add, add to get our 4 rates. So the rate 1 cutoff point is 12,012. The rate 2 cutoff point is 27,382. The rate 3 is 70,044, and then everything else is 8%. Now, our rates I'm just going to, I think just want to double check the rates, because yeah, the rates have changed. So you can see we're on the 2024 rates, not the 2025 rates. Okay, so just I'll get that changed and get it updated, but we'll go with these for the moment. So we're just going to okay, and so that's fine. And then that's all we need there. Pay year to date, we're just checking that we have him on a salary, and that's fine. He's been paid by check. If we had previous pay and tax details for him, we would pop them in here. Okay. Working patterns, you wanted to say that somebody's working Monday to Friday, and that may have impacts for their PRSI if they're not working, if they're working kind of split weeks or something like that. So may be useful to have that information. Holidays, if you're using the system to keep track of their holidays and the number of days that they've taken. Absence, we're not going to concern ourselves in this module with the working patterns with those 3 tabs there. We're going to look at next the payments, and we've said that he is getting paid a salary. Okay, so when he's getting paid a salary, we have to pop in the standard amount here. So we're popping in 1050, but he may also get overtime. Okay, so we're just saying his rate 1, his flat rate is 48 euros an hour. So if he does do any overtime, it'll be based on that hourly rate. So I'm just popping something in there. I think that's all I need on that screen. His deductions, then we're told he pays local property tax of 260. So we're just going to pop that in. And then we have union of 5 euros, savings of 20, medical insurance of 50, and social club of 12. And we're told he has a pension of 20. Now, when we pop in the pension, it asks us, is this a percentage? So should it be 8% of his gross pay or 20% of his gross pay? Or is it a fixed amount? In this case, it's a fixed amount, so we'll leave it at that. If it was a percentage, we would just put a tick into that box and click done. Okay. So we can then just click through the tabs and make sure, so we have all his details in. If you try and save it and you're missing something that is mandatory, it won't let you save it. It'll bring you to that missing thing. It won't bring you to the override USC. Okay, so you have to just remember that yourself. So we're just going to save. Okay, and if you have a next employee that you want to set up, you would just go to new. Okay, but for now, I'm just going to live with that one employee and just mess around with him a little bit. Okay, so we've working through our flow chart, we've set our period, we've edited our employees. So if we've any new employees to set up, or if we've any changes to make to existing employees, like a new tax credit cert or new deduction, we would go in and make that change. We would then go to retrieve our RPNs from the revenue system, and again, that could bring in changes on somebody's tax status or their tax credits, previous pay, whatever it is. For us, we're going to go set period, edit employees, and straight down to enter time and pay. It says, you must do the most up-to-date RPN. Do you want to retrieve these? And we're going to say no. Okay. Now I just leave these at random. It's asking you, how do you want your employees to appear? It's fine. You can just continue. Now, and this time and pay screen pops up. So our employee is Ryan. Now I can just pop in that there, or I can click on the little radio box there and try and find them. So if I had more than one employee, I could pop it in there. So you see his salary appears in based on the information that we put in the edit screen. His deductions are coming in, and you see that it is generating his net pay at the moment. Now it's telling us that there's no PPS number for him, and that's grand, there isn't. So he has normal wages this week. We're going to give him 2 hours of time and a half. So I just go over to the hours and value and I pop in, and you see that it's calculating it based against an hourly rate of 48. But because we already set up what should happen to overtime, it's taking that 48 and multiplying it at time and a half. It's given him double time of 4 hours. Okay. And we want to give him expenses of 160. Okay, and you see here his gross pay now has gone to 1738. His tax this week is 409.73. His USC and PRSI, so they look reasonable enough. And we can save him. We can view his payslip and see that's how his payslip would look. We can, if he was leaving, we could pop in that he's leaving or he's suspended. And pop in the date. If he's taking holidays, we can pop it in here that he's taken 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever. And because we have set up all of our what should happen to our payroll in the event of somebody going on holidays, what should happen to their deductions, it'll automatically calculate everything for us. And we're going to save. Okay. And we X out of there. Now, again, in an assignment situation or an exam situation over the next couple of weeks, you will have more employees. You will have employees leaving. You will have employees starting. You will have changes happening to them, and you will go in and edit all of those. But you can check your control summary here, and we'll just preview it on screen. And that just shows us our employee, the date, what's happening. So what, the tax, the PRSI, the USC, it's effectively just a summary of the payslip information that we saw. It's just that it runs it all together for all of our employees. But because we've only one, we're not seeing the full effect of it. And so that's fine. I'm just going to cancel out of that. And then you would check your gross to net, and we can preview it here, and it shows Ryan Giggs. It shows he's getting this as a gross pay. He's getting these deductions. He has a tax of this amount. He has a non-taxable amount, and that's our expenses. And then it's showing his net pay, and over here then it's showing his PRSI. So you would be checking that against the manual calculations that I will have done for you. Okay. Now, if something wasn't right, so if he's paying 500 euros tax instead of the 409.73, you would come out of here, you would go back into your edit employees, and you would check normal, check that you haven't put a typo in here, check that you've overridden the USC, and make sure all the details are right. And if you spot something is wrong, you would change it, you would save, you would then go back down to your enter time and pay. We're still in this same week. We see now our status is that our time and pay has been calculated, but we could go back in to Ryan. All of our information comes in. So you may find that you've put in 4 hours time and pay instead of 2.5. You can check there that he's normal, his tax credits, his cut up, whatever it is. So you would make whatever changes it is that you need to make, save, and make sure that then your gross to net report is looking right. But you do not end your period until your gross to net is correct. If you can't figure out what it is that's wrong, you know, make a judgment call and move on. And it may be a situation that you find it next for period 2 and it'll recalculate as tax. So your period 1 will be wrong, but by the end of period 2, cumulatively, it will have caught up and will be correct. Okay, so I'm happy that everything looks fine. I'm going to end that period. It asks me, do I want to post the calculation results? I say I do. Okay. It does whatever it needs to do. And now I'm at a status of end of period. Okay. I would then go set my period. It's saying that it has detected that I didn't make a payroll submission, which I didn't. And it's asking, do I wish to complete that now? And I'm saying no. I then change my new period to process. So I finished period 1. I'm now, the next period I'm going to process is period 2. Okay. And okay. You'll see down here, I'll go to period 2. I still have that error message, that's fine. And I'll go to period 2 and I'm at a start of period. Okay. And the last thing I just want to show you is in here under other reports, there's any amount of them. Okay. So you, after you set up your employees, you can run an employee details report and you can preview it. This is a useful report and I would say to you, please do generate it off. So you can print it or you can save it as a PDF, but it's just very handy to check your setup details. And I would say do it at the, when you set them up initially, and then when, your new employees join in period 4 or whatever, you can generate it again. That's a useful report. You can run pay slips, you can run the gross to nets, you can see details of any payments or deductions, the P30 information, which is what do we owe revenue. So if I look at that, if I preview it, it'll tell me that it's obsolete and it'll give me an option of running a different report. I can say yes, and it'll bring me to this employer monthly liability, which basically gives me a summary of what I owe revenue. And I'm just going to preview that. It's for this company, and that's fine. End of period has not been processed. Yeah, that's fine. Do I wish to continue? And I'm just going to say show the quarterly, show this. Oh, there's an error somewhere. Okay, so there's something going on there, but it should just generate the employer liability report. So there's obviously something wrong in the setup here, which I will need to flag. Okay, so there's some interesting payroll reports in there, and I will say to you that I would like you to run whatever reports it is, and we'll start running those every week in class. Okay, so that's just kind of a summary of the bits and pieces. I'm just going to stop recording